This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Coming up on This Week in Agribusiness, dairy farmers gather for the World Dairy Expo. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here for This Week in Agribusiness. I'm Mike Pearson, and earlier this week I had the chance to travel to Madison, Wisconsin for the World Dairy Expo. Dairy farmers gathered from around the world to discuss a lot of the aspects of their industry, and I caught up with Alex Peterson. He's a Missouri dairy farmer and serves as chair of the U.S. Dairy Export Council. I asked how exports were faring here in 2023.
Things have been coming off a fantastic 2022. It's like hitting 62 home runs. This year we've hit 50 home runs. Still a fantastic year, but compared to last year, we're down a little bit. And it's a different story across the globe. Some parts, Southeast Asia, a little slow, kind of stumbling out of the post-COVID economy. Mexico kind of saving our bacon. The exchange rate has been very favorable. The peso's up like 17% the last year to the dollar. So they're kind of getting a discount and they're buying. And these are opportunities we need to be taking advantage of. And U.S. DEC through the past 25 years have really set the stage where we could. And that's why we have 85% of the market share in Mexico, which is what we should have as their best trading partner. But so wins, some setbacks, but trend line is right where we need to be.
I understand you had a chance recently to travel to Mexico. You talked to some of the milk buyers down there. Does that buying seem like it can continue?
Oh, absolutely. They're shrewd business people just like us. So when there's a great opportunity, they're going to take advantage of it. And the beauty is, the more they buy, the more their customers get used to our quality, reliability, customer service, and how close and good neighbor can be. So just great opportunity to have that relationship kind of carry us through the ebbs and flows invariably of what we know dairy markets are going to be.
Alex, as we think about the export market, there's been a lot of news stories over the past 18 months or so, countries like New Zealand and Belgium taking aim at dairy production in those countries for environmental reasons. Is this going to create opportunities for U.S. dairy producers?
I think being poised and staged to take advantage of opportunity, if somebody wants to pull back a little bit, we're more than happy to step in and fill the gap. But our ability to grow long-term is a selling point that we've been using for years. If you're a company in Dubai buying dairy products, you want to partner with a part of the world that is maybe in flux on what their industry is going to do, or a U.S. dairy industry that is poised, eager, and ready to continue to expand. So from Business 101, you want your supply chain to be able to keep up with you, and that's a great selling point we've had.
And do American dairy producers still have that selling point? The industry's seen some consolidation. Are we still able to respond to those kind of demands from international buyers?
Oh yeah, I think if it doesn't take much of a price hiccup for people to get enthused. So I think we are absolutely ready to rock and roll.
Fall is in the air and harvest is underway. We're going down to Avila, Missouri to talk with grower Austin Harshaw for this week's In the Cab with Pioneer segment. Austin, thanks for joining us this week.
Yep, thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about the environment where you're farming. Avila, Missouri, between Joplin and Springfield. Tell us a little bit, if you would, about the soils down there, Austin.
We farm quite a bit of pretty thin dirt, pretty low APHs. Some of it's kind of rocky, rolling, some thinner stuff, but I mean, we make do with it.
We make do. Austin, I would imagine with that level of soil, drought tolerance is especially important for you and your operation, isn't it?
Oh, yes. It seems like we're going to have a drought given some time within the summer, no matter what, every year.
And this year, was that the case as well?
Oh, yes. We definitely had our fair share of it. We had a very dry spring, and we had some very dry times there in the summer whenever we was trying to get corn to pollinate there during kernel fill. But luckily, we caught some rains, and it worked out here.
Well, that's good to hear. And I understand you're planting Pioneer Aquamax corn hybrids on the operation. Austin, how many years have you been doing that?
I think we've been doing mainly Aquamax for 9 years now, and I think we've been planting it for 11, I believe, total.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that has added to your operation and what it brings to you in the field this time of year?
Oh, it's just, we've been happy with it. I feel like it's going to really fill in there. I mean, in the drought times, whenever we have, I don't know, it seems like it has good stay green. It just seems like it'll hold in there. It's going to try to fill whenever some of the other corn is going to give up on some of these tougher acres.
Well, that's good to hear, Austin. And as you look out to this harvest, how's it shaping up?
It's been really good. A lot of corn we've been in so far. There's been a lot of 160s. There's been some mid 170s.
Well, that's good to hear, Austin, but I understand you grow a lot more than just corn on your operation. Could you tell us a little bit about the variety that you've got there?
Yeah, we grow in the winter or late fall. We'll have wheat, barley. Then we'll have first crop beans, double crop beans behind all the wheat and barley acres. Milo, sunflowers, a little bit of grass seed. We bale a lot of hay, just a couple mama cows, but it seems to be pretty spread out. So.
Now, sunflowers, that's interesting. Austin, did you see any changes or improvements to your rotation after adding sunflowers?
We've been very happy with adding sunflowers into our rotation. I feel like the compaction breakup that taproot has and just having something different there in rotation, we've been very, very happy with putting sunflowers in our rotation. And we've just been planting Pioneer sunflowers now for the past probably 5 or 6 years. And I don't know, we've been happy with them.
What about Milo? I understand you've also got some Pioneer Milo on the ground. How's that shaping up for you?
Yeah, a lot of our sorghum, our Milo looks really, really good this year. We're really happy with it. It was a little bit later planted than we like to see, but like I said, it's filled out. It looks really, really good. I'd say we're still about 2.5, 3 weeks from harvest on it being dry, but it's shaping up to be really well this year.
Well, that is fantastic. Austin, we'll let you get back to work. Thank you for joining us in the cab with Pioneer this week.
All right, sounds good. Thank you for having me.
There has never been a better time to upgrade your combine tractor and grain cart tires. Save up to $300 per tire when you buy 2 or more eligible Firestone Ag radial tires this fall. Visit firestoneag.com for more details. And now it's time to talk markets. Joining us this week is Alyssa Badger, Vice President of Operations for High Ground Dairy. And Alyssa, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me back, Mike.
Now, last time we had you on, it was earlier this summer, and Alyssa, dairy producers at that time were seeing some of the worst margins since 2012, but it looked like they were going to get better. Did they?
Yeah, absolutely. So in July, we had a $13 handle on Class 3 milk, and since then we saw a lot of volatility, but we're looking more around the $18 per hundredweight level, so things are looking much brighter.
What was it that turned that around? Was it milk production tailing off in the summer?
Yeah, so it was mostly supply driven. We saw a huge uptick in slaughter rates because we were dealing with those tough margins, so farmers, really good beef prices. We all know that. So we saw the slaughter rates come on at a really aggressive rate, and as a result, milk production pulled back, and we turned negative in July and August. So mostly supply driven.
Mostly supply driven. As you think about that supply and the way dairy is produced across the country, Alyssa, I've got to imagine some geographies are harder hit than others. Where are we seeing some of the biggest supply drawdowns?
There's been a massive drawdown in herd size in New Mexico and in California. So California, they're looking at a herd size, the lowest that we've seen since March 2004. So pretty interesting, very expensive to dairy in that region with the lack of water and feed availability. So we're seeing not only cows move out of that state, but also, again, those higher slaughter rates to take advantage of the high beef costs.
Alyssa, as you think again about that geographic distribution of dairy processing, California, the Southwest, New Mexico, does the lack of cows in that area impact any specific processing area for the dairy industry, cheese or butter or anything like that?
Oh yeah, you bet. So last time I was on, I kind of said butter was a bright spot for the industry, and that couldn't have been more true. These past 2 weeks, we've seen butter stretch to all-time highs. $3.43 as of yesterday, and the interesting thing is last week and into this week, it's like every day we're seeing a fresh new record high, and a lot of that has to do with the tight milk supply out of California because of that herd consolidation.
Okay, so if this continues very much longer, will producers in other parts of the country benefit from higher butter pricing as well?
Yeah, of course. They'll see a little bit of a better check when it comes to that butterfat premium, especially if they're dairying with those Jersey cows. But Class 3 milk throughout the Midwest is also seeing a nice uptick in prices. Cheese prices have come back a little bit because of some decent consumer demand. So the Midwest will also see some better milk checks here.
Well, that is exciting. Certainly deserved for those producers who have been working so hard. Thinking about producers in that upper Midwest region, those milk checks are coming up. Is production staying solid?
Yeah, we're not seeing that massive pullback the way that we are seeing on the West Coast. There was a temporary tightening up situation because of that heat wave that we saw throughout the Midwest, but things have gotten much better. Milk is loosening up. So the supply situation in the Midwest is not nearly as dire as it is out west, but they're balancing each other. And that's why we're kind of expecting to see flatter milk production throughout the end of the year.
Okay, so these herds that have been liquidated, they're not coming back anytime soon.
I don't think so. Part of that reason, typically when we see those higher slaughter rates, we'll rebuild at a quicker pace when those milk prices do come back. But our heifer inventory is very light heading into this season, so we won't be able to rebuild the way that we have in the past.
All right, lots to watch for an industry that's been variable throughout the past couple of years. And Alyssa, we'll pick your brain for more when we come back. There has never been a better time to upgrade your combine, tractor, and grain cart tires. Save up to $300 per tire when you buy 2 or more eligible Firestone Ag radial tires this fall. Visit firestoneag.com for more details. And we're back talking specifically about the dairy industry this week with Alyssa Badger, Vice President of Global Operations for High Ground Dairy. Alyssa, we talked about production in that first segment. Next, I want to talk about demand. When you think about what's happening around the world, how do things look for the American dairy export picture?
For the export picture, things have been rosy, touch and go there for a minute, but Mexico has been kind of the saving grace for our export market. They've been buying a lot of cheese, a lot of powder, and when you look at the economy in Mexico, they've been doing really great. So that's been a saving grace for us because we have seen demand drop back from the likes of Japan, South Korea, who would typically be consuming a lot of our cheese. So thank God for Mexico because they've really helped pick up those exports. From a domestic consumption standpoint, there's been a lot of volatility there. If you remember, shrinkflation was all over the headlines these past couple of years, and pack sizes are much smaller than they used to. So the demand's there, but they're buying much smaller pack sizes. So all in all, our cold storage inventories have been at decent levels and not super supportive. So we would like to see consumer demand pick up a little bit. We will see it improve throughout the holiday season. That's why we're seeing a lot of volatility in butter and strong demand there because we're going to be doing a lot of baking. So domestically, a good picture in the nearby perspective, but long term, just on the lookout for those consumer demand trends and shrinkflation.
One of the things I heard at the World Dairy Expo in Madison this year was the slowdown from purchases in China. Is that something that's reverberating through the market?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, New Zealand's being hit the most with the weaker Chinese demand. We're seeing a little bit of positivity coming out of the region finally. Of course, there's a lot of issues going on. We're seeing a lot of milk production happen, so their inventories are quite high there because their consumption's down. But I do think China's going to be coming back here soon into 2024 as they kind of rebuild their pipeline and work through those higher inventories that they had throughout much of this year.
Alyssa, when a big country like China looks to enter the dairy export market, what products do they most tend to search for?
China is a big consumer of milk powder. So whole milk powder from New Zealand is one of their largest imports. They also import a lot of skim milk powder. And then, of course, as consumer trends change there within Asia and China, they're buying a lot more finished goods like cheeses and butters as they consume a lot more pizza.
All right, Alyssa, before we let you go, you have the chance to work with producers around the country. And as they're looking out and planning for 2024, are they feeling some optimism? Are things moving in the right direction for the industry as a whole?
Yeah, we are cautiously bullish, and I only say cautious because from a supply side, there's a lot of support here. We have negative milk production likely coming on from New Zealand, Argentina, Australia, Europe's flat to negative any day now. And the U.S. is going to be one of the only regions to see some positive growth here into next year. It's what we're feeling. So that's certainly a big opportunity for us to then fulfill the global demand into the export market.
All right, more opportunity coming for America's dairy producers, it sounds like. Alyssa Badger, Vice President of Global Operations at High Ground Dairy, thanks for joining us this week.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Colby Ag Tech is brought to you by Copperhead Ag Products. Visit copperheadag.com for more information. We've seen electric cars, we've seen electric trucks, we've recently seen electric tractors, and now Chad Colby brings us electric side-by-sides.
At the Farm Progress Show, I'm sure many of you have seen all these vehicles that have electrification, like Case IH's new electric tractor. My good friend Brian Leone called me early this week and said, Chad, we got our first electric Ranger in, and you have got to drive this thing before we sell it. And yeah, it's a Ranger. Looks just like they've been doing for, I guess, decades now. But I will tell you this, after driving it, this is far from just another Ranger. It's got a 110 horse electric motor packed underneath it. This particular model he had one battery, so it's got a range of about 45 miles or so. You can get it with 2 batteries to double the mileage if you need it. Brian thought 45 was going to be good enough for his clients. Here's the charging port right here. It comes with all the necessary cables, even a real handy app that you can use on your phone so you can monitor the battery and make sure it's charged up, those kind of things. But for me personally, after being around the machine a little bit, I realized really quickly this thing's going to bring a totally different application to side-by-sides. Not only is it more efficient, Brian told me about 70% less operating costs. And listen to this. All you hear in the background are the flags on the pole, not the machine as I drive by. And as far as performance goes, if you haven't driven any vehicles that have electrification, the performance is second to nothing. And I think part of that performance is the silence, if we're being real honest with you. Sit and have a conversation, being around your cattle, all those things. And listen, if you hit the throttle, these things go. No different than a car or an electric bulldozer. They make all their torque all at one time, and it is incredible. So if you're in the market for a side-by-side, this is definitely something to think about. I know for me, I was beyond impressed with the performance of this vehicle. For This Week in Agribusiness, I'm Chad Colby.
Thank you, Chad. And folks, stay with us. Later in the program, we'll get another update on our Plan Smart, Grow Smart series from our friends at BASF.
So we recently launched an innovation a couple years ago called Taraxa, and it really changed the game when it comes to wireworm control. It's a novel mode of action, and unlike some of the other chemistries out there, it really does eliminate wireworm.
Closed captioning for This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Pentair Hypro, a global leader in innovative spray technology for farmers for over 75 years.
Yes, folks, the World Dairy Expo happened this past week in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, that event has happened that same first week in October since 1967, with one exception there in 2020. And it's a place that the industry gathers together. It's a massive trade show full of all sorts of things that dairy producers might need on their operation. And it's an opportunity to show off the best of the best when it comes to the breeds of dairy cattle. Had a chance to spend a little time in the show ring and see those folks showing off their pride and joy was truly an incredible thing to see. We also had a chance to check in with some of the best of the industry. The World Dairy Expo annually names a Dairy Producer of the Year. And this year it was Randy Cortis from Linden, Washington. We had a chance to catch up.
Well, I grew up on a commercial dairy, and then after graduating from WSU, I started on my own in 1981.
In the dairy business?
In the dairy business with registered cattle, and actually got into several breeds over the years and things like that, and we were very successful in what we did because we had to.
Because you had to be. And if your success has brought you to here, you were named Dairy Person of the Year. Randy, tell us a little bit about what your life is like today. What are you doing on the day-to-day contributing to the dairy industry?
Well, I still serve on several boards. We had an opportunity in 2019 to sell our production history to our milk co-op so other farms could get larger, and we took the opportunity of that after I lost my wife and being this small dairyman and just reaching the age, and so we sold our milk cows to several herds, and our heifers finally ended up being gone finally in 2022. But today I'm very involved in select sires and worldwide sires, and still do international traveling and things like that, teaching or judging cattle shows or things like that.
For people outside the dairy industry, Randy, they might not know how important semen is to the industry and the sale of semen. Can you talk a little bit about what that business is like and how it works? Who all are you selling semen to?
Well, selling semen, I think, is very important because it's probably the cheapest way you can make genetic improvement. And Worldwide Sires, which is part of Select Sires, our international marketing section of it, sells in over 100 countries around the world. And, you know, as things have changed, we sell more sex semen now, and sex semen continues to grow, where you can either have a female or a male, depending on which breed of cattle you have and desire. And so that has all changed the industry, but it's amazing to see the genetic improvement around the world, because people could take their cross cows or Brahmas, or, you know what I'm saying, and make such improvement and gain such a deal in milk production.
Randy, thinking about those sales around the world, is that something that's still happening? We know there's geopolitical concerns nearly everywhere you look. Are we still exporting those quality American genetics?
Yes, we are, and actually we own some companies in countries, and one of the latest is China. And, you know, they've just placed a very large order, and we already were selling there, but now we own the business, and, you know, we just bought another business in Turkey. And so many countries, Russia's still a great market for us. And so, you know, yes, they still have a desire to improve their genetics, improve their cattle, and they certainly, you know, see that the U.S. is a leader in genetics.
Randy, another change connected to genetics is the move I'm hearing a lot about at World Dairy Expo 2023, beef and dairy crosses. A lot of folks are looking at the excitement in the cattle market, wanting to bring a piece of that to their dairy operation. Can you explain a little bit, what is a beef dairy cross and how does it benefit a dairyman?
Well, today, because of the beef on beef market has decreased so much because of drought and feed and weather conditions, that population has decreased so much. And so with sex semen, people have realized that they don't need as many heifers and things like that. And so somewhere around 60 to 70% of their dairy herd is being bred to beef on dairy. And what we have found is a very uniform beef that has performed very well, because you find genetics that will work better on dairy cattle and get the marbling and things like that you desire. And so today, those calves are bringing a very good income to dairymen who are having a very depressed year with milk prices and high feed prices.
And it is a depressed year. It has been a challenging couple of years with the COVID pandemic and everything else connected to it. Randy, from your position with your years of experience in the dairy industry, are you optimistic for American dairy producers? Do you think there's still reason to be fired up about the dairy industry?
Oh, I think there's still optimism about it. I think milk prices will recover again and things like this. We just have to work harder at export markets. Especially of our dairy products and things like that, and I think we will see an improvement through it, but we also will see consolidation, which some of us probably don't like to see, because many of us like those small farms and things like that, but the next generation, you know, doesn't want to have that 365-day job every day. So I in my own family, I see that, you know, that happen.
Thank you, Randy, and congratulations on winning Dairy Producer of the Year at the World Dairy Expo. Fascinating to hear how this industry could continue to change as we look out to the future. Now, while I was in Madison, the weather was beautiful, which meant no doubt farmers were out in the fields bringing in their crops as harvest is really underway across the northern parts of the United States. And folks, stick around. Later on in the program, Greg Solier will give us an update on what to expect for harvest in your neck of the woods.
This Week in Agribusiness, serving America's most essential industry, is brought to you by Case IH.
Welcome back to This Week in Agribusiness. Farmers this time of year, of course, running their combines through the field, they're able to assess the decisions they made earlier in the growing season. One of those decisions may have been whether or not to apply a seed treatment. Max Armstrong recently had the chance to visit with our friends at BASF about seed treatments. He talked with Sydney Cebulski about what's coming in 2023 and what to expect down the line.
Tell us about your seed treatment offerings. What do you bring to the growers?
Our seed treatment portfolio, I think the best thing we offer growers is the breadth. We have everything from chemistry, insecticides, fungicides, nematicides, biologicals, colors and coatings. The other thing that we're able to offer our customers is innovative new technologies. In recent years, we've launched 5 new products, from Taraxa, really the first new mode of action for wireworm, Volt IP Plus, which is an inoculant, and 2 EPA-registered biofungicides, and Relania, which is a new seed treatment based on the Revysol molecule.
Let's talk about wheat specifically, and what kind of a difference you folks can make for the wheat producers.
So we recently launched an innovation a couple years ago called Taraxa, and it really changed the game when it comes to wireworm control. It's a novel mode of action, and unlike some of the other chemistries out there, it really does eliminate wireworm.
Soybeans, you have some answers there for growers as well, especially with the soybean cyst nematode.
A couple years ago, BASF launched a sampling initiative to try and help farmers understand what kind of soybean cyst nematode pressure they have on their farm. And one of the solutions we have is Alivo seed treatment. And so that is, not only does it control SCN, but it also controls SDS, both of which are damaging diseases and happen at the same time often.
Sustainability is a term we hear and use often. It's not a throwaway term. Many take it very seriously. How do you folks at BASF help growers in that regard?
Seed treatment can be a very important part of sustainable farming practices. I think about things like stewardship, so our coatings that help to keep the active ingredient on the seed where it's supposed to be and where it's most effective to farmers. We also offer a variety of biologicals which can help improve the soil microbiome, make the microbiome more active, and allow the plant to take up more nutrients. Seed treatment is a very important part of managing early season pests and diseases. You're putting seed in the ground when it's usually cold and wet, and so it's important that people protect that investment that they made in the seed. Our portfolio offers high quality products, quality formulations and quality research, rigorous testing and rigorous formulation development so that our customers know what they buy is what's on the seed.
So Sydney, if somebody's looking for more information, what's the best course to follow?
So you can visit our website, agriculture.basf.us. You can speak to a BASF rep or visit your retail.
We appreciate you filling us in on seed treatments. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Max. And folks, if you'd like to see all of the Plan Smart, Grow Smart series, you can view them on the website, plansmartgrowsmart.com.
Greg Solier now brings us his farm weather forecast for the week ahead, presented by Pivot Bio Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
Well, it's that time to check in on the forecast. Meteorologist Greg Solier standing by to keep us up to speed. And Greg, as you look out at the Pacific Northwest, I understand last week caught a little moisture.
Yes.
Is that a trend that's going to continue?
Yeah, more typical early autumn setup in that particular part of the country. So that usually means a progression every couple of 2 or 3 days of weather systems on the move. Boy, we certainly were happy about the moisture that came down last week with significant rain, mountain snow, and one more piece making its way into the first half of the week inland from Washington State and Oregon out through the divide and points on to the east, and it will help to generate some additional rain like we saw last week farther north into the southern Canadian prairie. Either side of about Winnipeg had some pretty good coverages and amounts, and up in that general area probably some pretty good frost and freeze as well. And instead, cool weather there, milder from the Black Hills on southward, and again this trough making its way early to middle parts of the week from west to east. That trough is replaced by a ridge over this particular part of the country, so some coolness, but back to a drier mode anticipated, some shower activity, and we'll take anything we can get kind of right along the northern tier of counties through Montana and North Dakota, the worst of the dryness and drought, and farther north into the Canadian prairie where there may be a wet snowflake or two. Next weather system comes ashore. So we get spacing in between these weather systems for outdoor work, and I'm sure those winter wheat fields across Washington State on southward will appreciate the rain, obviously, and moisture from last week and this week to come as well. Late season heat across the desert southwest, cotton harvest moving along across Arizona, and rice harvest as well through sections of California. Stray shower Napa on northward. Cool weather across areas of Nebraska. Temperatures moderating from a little frost patch here just a couple of days ago. May trip off a couple of sprinkles of rain. Warm weather continuing on over the heart of the winter wheat belt where we need more moisture. There may maybe something trying to get going in those eastern areas, southeastern plains as the week wears on. Next weather system, a trough moving into the central and southern plains, a couple of snowflakes in the higher peaks, pretty quiet weather through the valleys of California, desert southwest, and maybe a couple of scattered showers and thunderstorms going across Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. Better organization of the rains, Mike, as you work east of there in the days to come.
Well, Greg, this past week I had the chance to travel to Madison, Wisconsin, saw lots of combines out running. It was great weather this past week in the central part of the U.S. What do you see looking out to this next week?
Well, maybe a few delays early in the week coming off the rains of last week, although most of them were pretty much manageable. So we should continue on with the opportunity to either mature the back 40 at a much slower pace, mind you, in the coolness of the air. And yeah, there's a little frost in the air and on the ground past couple of days across the northern plains, northern and northwestern sections of the Corn Belt, non-damaging variety, but a sign of the times, cooler, drier weather moving into the eastern sections of the Corn Belt, some gusty winds, a little lake-induced moisture across the Great Lakes. So if it's the look and feel of autumn, by golly, it is over the northern and eastern areas of the Corn Belt. Here's a warm front, a couple of sprinkles of rain. And yeah, there's another pattern shift. These cool shots, as we've been talking about, will be relatively short-lived. They're brief in an El Nino setup, and a nice turnaround in temperature reading as gets underway out of the northern and central plains with outdoor work in mind. And despite a couple of isolated, widely scattered showers, maybe a thunderstorm back west and south of the Missouri, still some opportunity galore for outdoor work and harvest operations over many areas of the Corn Belt that will likely get extended here in the weeks to come, with El Nino still in high overdrive, as well as the drought that continues on. We've seen some localized improvement. Nice to see last week some 1 to 3 local 4 to 5 inch rains over eastern Texas, down through Bayou country and farther to the north. Early in the week, cooler, drier, high pressure in control, but note this boundary and a northwest to southeast upper air pattern, and the end result, along with a little tropical weakness, some significant rains eastern Texas, Oklahoma, back east through Arkansas, Louisiana, and the Delta. So Mike, some drought relief in store over the far southern states as the days wear on.
Well, they could certainly use it, Greg, but what do you see as you look to East Coast?
A nip in the air, a flake or two in the air as well, north and northwest of the St. Lawrence River Valley, with the upper air circulation pinwheeling around. Yeah, the feel of autumn's in the air from the summertime warmth over the past couple of weeks. A little frost patch, northern and western Corn Belt locales, a couple of sprinkles downwind of the Great Lakes region, otherwise high pressure and control. Opportunities for outdoor work, harvest operations, milder air back to the west of the Mississippi may trigger a stray shower or sprinkle of no measurable consequence. Coolness in the air, but dry time scheduled for the northeast of New England. Boy, it has been a tough past few weeks out there with the run of tropical weather systems, wet weather, and flooding rainfall in spots. A couple of showers into the Carolinas. We're in good shape soil moisture wise here. Back to the west, a world of problems trying to get those peanuts dug out of the ground. Just way too dry and drought ridden over the Delta region. A couple of showers and thunderstorms in through Texas, but looky here, a weak tropical system, at least it's tropical moisture into Louisiana, back in through Texas, higher humidity, showers and thunderstorms with drought relief there, and a little more rain too down across the Florida peninsula.
Greg Solier is back with his extended farm weather forecast for the country, presented by Pivot Bio-Proven 40. Predictable, productive, weatherproof. Turn to a better nitrogen. Turn to Pivot Bio-Proven 40. Learn more at pivotbio.com.
And it's time for more weather details with Greg Solier. Greg, you talked about some moisture coming next week. Who's going to see it?
It will be areas that have been really shortchanged on the rain gauge this summertime and early autumn season. You know, we've had a run of tropical systems early in the tropical season in the Pacific Basin and of late out of the Atlantic. A few of those with a glancing blow up the eastern seaboard. What has been missed out, and yeah, there usually is some benefit to the rains of a tropical nature across the Gulf Coast. So we've seen an expansion of dryness and drought from about the Florida Panhandle back west into Texas and north up to maybe about as far southern reaches of Illinois. But as the week wears on, looky here, some significant rainfall. This is great news. It's been a tough go of it with harvest operations and pretty crummy crop quality across the Gulf Coast areas back into Texas. So hopefully more rain, of course, on top of what came through there last week. Through the mid-Atlantic region, where we're in good shape with soil moisture here, more wet weather there anticipated, an inch or two. Scattered coverage maybe as the week wears on and towards the following weekend into this part of the Corn Belt. Otherwise, plenty of opportunity for harvest operations and some good coverage moisture, Mike, for the divide back westward, including sections of maybe the desert southwest.
Well, let's talk temperature, Greg. What do you expect to see the week of October 16th?
This cool snap, cold spell, short-lived. They will be few and far between as we continue forth through the remainder of the fall and into the winter season. Trademark of El Nino, quick moderation, quick turnaround, and we see the jet stream off the Rockies, west to east, downslope winds warming across the plains and into the southwestern sections of the country. A little leftover cool air for the northeast and New England. Moisture pattern, don't need to rush it, push it, worry about it. Safety first. We'll get it done quick enough, if not sooner than that, with harvest in mind for the upper Midwest, down through the heart of the Corn Belt as well. A little wet weather with a weak tropical system will have made its way from the Gulf into the southwest Atlantic, so some wet weather here. It's a benefit for the Gulf Coast, wet weather for the southern plains, and into the Pacific Northwest as well.
What do you expect to see as you get 1 week further, the week of October 23rd?
Nothing real autumn-like whatsoever across the heartland. Here comes another one of these warm ridges, sinking air. You can still kind of do that. A little more wind involved this time of the year, but a nice go of it with outdoor work and comfort in mind. No need to stoke up the furnace or run down the propane with temperatures above average all the way to the eastern seaboard. A little troughiness expected along areas of the divide on westward, so we do get some more moisture for northern California. No problems there. Pacific Northwest into parts of Big Sky country. Normal precip across areas west of the Missouri, and plenty of dry time for outdoor work and harvest operations across much of the Corn Belt, especially central and eastern areas down through Florida and up and down the eastern seaboard as well.
Do we start to get fall in the air by the first week of November?
Not really. I mean, we're going to continue with, again, some semblance of cool to cold air, but nothing bitter. If it is, it's short-lived. What should be a very strong, or at least moderate El Nino here well into the beginning part of winter. Here is the warmth from the heartland to the Great Lakes region, a little below average over this part of the country. Still some troughiness back west of the divide into the Pacific Northwest and California. And we still have plenty of opportunity out of that ridge for outdoor work, harvest operations, whatever you have up your sleeve. So again, we'll get it done in good order here across the Corn Belt and southward. A little unsettled for the northeast of New England, and welcome rains and moisture too, including snow for the upper Midwest.
Next on This Week in Agribusiness, it's Max's Tractor Shed, spotlighting another great American tractor.
Well, now that most of all of the summertime shows and parades and festivals are behind us, some of these old machines have been moved to other duty. I'll talk about it at Max's Tractor Shed. Brought to you by the folks at Mystic Lubricants. Mystic Lubricants producers, they are made to make it last. Well, they had their day in the sun, all right. Some of those old machines, such as this 1954 Farmall Super MTA. This particular tractor from the Miller family in northern Indiana was at the Half Century of Progress, and it was at the Farm Progress Show. And then it moved back to the farm, as many of those tractors have. This particular tractor, the Miller family Super MTA, was restored only days ahead of the Half Century Show at Rantoul. And then it moved on over to the Farm Progress Show. Well, when that machine got back to the farm in Fulton County, Indiana, Joe Miller and his dad didn't just stick that tractor back at the corner of the machine shed and put a tarp over it. No, sir, they hooked it up. And like some other fine machines during this harvest, the 1954 Super MTA is helping put grain in the bin by powering the auger. Hey, show me your auger tractor if you have an old one at work out there, like the Miller family Super MTA at Rochester, Indiana. Old tractors, new ones, Mark Stock loves them all, and they sell them at big iron auctions. Here's Mark with his weekly report.
Well, Max, Hudson Inc., a well-known John Deere dealership throughout Indiana, Kentucky, and Tennessee, will have a very large set of auctions during the month of October. In fact, 4 Tuesdays in a row, starting on October the 10th, you'll expect a wide range of agricultural equipment selling to the highest bidder with no reserve, including over 100 tractors, 30 different combines. We're talking late model 2022 John Deere S770s, 780s, and 790s. Late model John Deere forage harvesters, 30 different planters. They have hay equipment and a whole bunch more. Once again, October the 10th is the first of 4 auctions Hudson will be offering with no reserve some of the best and latest John Deere equipment available on the auction market. And Max, on October 11th, TMB Operations LLC with locations in Idaho, Iowa, South Dakota, and Minnesota will sell late model equipment as well. 2021 John Deere 8RT 370 track tractor, 2021 John Deere 8R 340 mechanical front tractor, and many more items. We're seeing a big uptick in late model equipment hitting the market, and we'll be selling it with no reserve here throughout the month of October, November, and into December. Stay tuned to our website for all the latest updates.
Our FFA Chapter Tribute is brought to you by Pioneer, developing new generations of seed innovations for new generations of farmers. Pioneer, what's next happens here. Now it's time to meet that new generation. We're talking to the leadership in FFA. This week, it's Colin McIntyre. He serves as Missouri State FFA Vice President. Colin, thanks for talking with us this week.
Of course, it's great seeing you all.
If you would, Colin, tell us, what was it like growing up and what prompted you to get involved with FFA?
So growing up, I grew up in Kansas City, which is kind of a big city to be involved in agriculture. And really what prompted me to get into FFA was showing those youth that agriculture is important regardless of where you grow up or whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You have to have agriculture as a background. Urban agriculture was something that I was really passionate about growing up because we have to have food for everyone regardless of where we grow up. And so urban agriculture was really what prompted me to join FFA, as well as a little bit of help and support from my dad.
And then once you joined, I understand, Colin, you got into leadership. And what was it about that made you want to serve?
I wanted to show students what they could do in FFA, what they could do in agriculture. I know for myself, I wasn't always the most active FFA member growing up, but I kind of took the steps into getting into those roles, whether that was running for a chapter office or running for an area office. I wanted to step into those roles and show those students and those young agriculturalists that agriculture is still important regardless of where you grew up and regardless of the agriculture background you have.
And so now, of course, you're in that leadership role. You're talking to those students across the state. And what are you excited about this year, Colin?
I am super excited to engage with every single FFA member across the state. We just got back last week from Southeast Missouri, which has a completely different agriculture background. They grow rice, cotton, peanuts, and really getting to interact with those students in Southeast Missouri and getting to give them those leadership opportunities is super important for me. And it got me really excited for the next year and what it could hold for me.
That's so exciting. Colin, as you look out longer term, do you hope your future plans involve a career in agriculture?
I do. So right now I am going to school for agriculture communications. I want to help tell the agriculture story from an urban side as well as from the rural side. I want to give both people the perspective of agriculture and really kind of tie it all together.
That's what we need, Colin. We wish you the best. Colin McIntyre, Missouri State FFA Vice President. Harvest is underway across the country, and that means that supplies of both corn and soybeans are growing. That makes the focus now demand. Recently, Max had a chance to catch up with Mac Marshall, a chief economist with the United Soybean Board, about what he's watching with regard to soybean demand in the future.
Mac Marshall is here with us from the United Soybean Board. Mac, it's good to see you again.
Likewise, Max. It's always a pleasure to get to reconnect, especially in person here at Farm Progress.
Yeah, I know you've been watching this year's production capabilities, possibilities, limitations, maybe in some instances. What are you sharing with growers, especially after we looked at supply-demand numbers not too many days ago?
Yeah, so the August report, of course, that came out. We saw the yield cut, which I don't think was too surprising. A lot of drought stress in many parts of the country.
We know we don't operate in a vacuum, of course. It's a very competitive scenario out there in the world marketplace. But the demand, there's some key parts of the world that we look at, and we have to look close to home and potential demand coming here.
And I think now, with the surge in expanding crush capacity across the country, in many parts of the country that have historically been underserved by the processing facilities, that means we're looking domestically maybe a lot more than we have in the past. Now, soy, of course, is an export-oriented crop, but with more and more processing coming online in the years to come, we're excited for the incremental production that's going to be crushed here domestically and the opportunities for our buyers, both in the animal ag space here in the U.S. and abroad, for more and more of the soybean meal, high-quality soybean meal that's going to be hitting the market in the years to come.
Mac, I'm trying to remember, aren't there close to 24 soybean crush facilities either on the drawing board or under construction?
We're coming close to that, right? By the end of 2026, we could be seeing capacity scale up, in excess of 30%, which is really quite staggering when you think about it. That means we could be crushing, another 700, potentially 800 million bushels of beans each year. Finding that home in the U.S. is pretty important.
That aviation demand is something that just, I find it astounding. The possibilities astounding. It will mean we need to find a home for a lot of meal, though, right?
Well, fortunately, soybean meal in the animal feed industry is the absolute gold standard for protein, right? So I'm not concerned about finding a meal for it, really, or finding a home for it. I'm excited about the opportunity that our buyers domestically and internationally, particularly in the animal ag space in the U.S., are going to have for availability of a high-quality protein to help spur on their operations as well.
Well, you folks at USB have a great track record of helping growers find a home for what they produce, and I know you'll keep your shoulder to the wheel. Mac Marshall, thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. Always a pleasure.
My pleasure. Max with the United Soybean Board.
Thanks, Max. It's exciting to see this new demand development for soybeans, and folks, that's the sort of demand we'll be tracking here on This Week in Agribusiness. Thank you so much for joining us. Please be sure to catch us next time, same place, same time, right here. We'll have more news about what's driving our industry. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.
This Week in Agribusiness is brought to you by Case IH. This Week in Agribusiness is produced by Omax Communication in association with 22 Creative Group. We invite you to visit us online at agbizweek.com.